Welcome back to EarthChangesRadio, episode 14. This week, the hosts Rick and Steve talk about the mainstream media. Are they completely incompetent or just absolute liars? And now, the two guys coming to us live and direct from a basement in the Miami Chinese Embassy, it's Rick and Steve. Take it away, boys!
Kinda jiggy, I like it. Thank you, Carol. I love your introductions each and every week. Thank you so much for that. Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Earth Changes Radio, EarthChangesRadio.com. Want to say hello to all my friends, foes, and assorted others out there. Hello, welcome, and we are interactive exclusively on Paltalk, paltalk.com. You can join us every Tuesday night. Hey, everybody in the chat room, we have a full house tonight. Great to see you all. This show comes with disclaimers. Well, you all know that by now. So if you're suffering from mental illness and or depression, be advised that tonight's show will disturb you. Secondly, this is citizen reporting, and we do not claim to be experts or authorities. We're giving you the news that the mainstream lying media, which by coincidence would be the topic of our show tonight. And hey, Steve, good evening. How you doing tonight, bud?
Well, sir, it never ceases to amaze me the amount of fantastic stories we seem to get through and the amount of information we seem to dig up that the mainstream media just don't seem to have or don't want to report. That there's a lot of stuff to get through tonight, and in fact, some of the stories we've got will disturb you. They are shocking. I'll give you one example. An 11-year-old boy has casually shown security experts how easy it is to actually bust into your credit cards, into your electronic devices, and just walking around in a hall, he showed he could actually break in to everybody's credit card and get their numbers, break into their phone, get their contacts, and basically an 11-year-old boy has shown how easy it is to hack electronic devices. With the Internet of Things now approaching, where everything is going to be connected, this should heed as a warning to not get connected, to don't have your things handy and don't have your phone switched on in a public place. They are easily hackable these days. I mean, technology is getting so fast now that we're not keeping up with the security concerns of everything that is connected to the Internet. And I believe you have some breaking news stories there. Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, this is just in moments ago from our good friends in the Philippines, our friend Odd, reporting to us tonight that the Philippines has declared martial law in one of the southern islands, that fighting has broken out with ISIS. This is developing news. You're going to want to stay tuned to this. We just found out about this moments ago. Also, breaking news that Highway 1 in Southern California has suffered a catastrophic landslide hazard, blocking the Coastal Scenic Highway 1 with about 40 million tons of boulders and debris. Mindondo, is that it? Southern Mindondo is the region, if I'm pronouncing that right, in the Philippines that is having a problem with ISIS. And we were discussing just before we went on air how diplomatic relations had soured with the Philippines, and the U.S. military was asked to leave the Philippines. And there's a lot of political wrangling going on there, backstabbing. And now all of a sudden ISIS has appeared in the Philippines. These coincidences are just way too numerous. What are we chasing them from one area to another, creating new pockets? Because, Steve, I firmly believe that ISIS is a creation of the CIA. Follow the money, follow the weapons, follow the funding and the supplies. Always follow the money. We created those terrorists. Are we creating new ones now in the Philippines? We're fighting them in 4 regions of the world now. Where are they coming from? We are creating them. That's only a personal opinion of mine, Steve. What say you?
Well, sir, I do know that for a number of years, shortly after the Bali bombings in 2002, there were reports that Jamal Islamiyah, the Indonesian cell of the CIA was actually sending people to the Philippines, to Mindanao. I do know that that they were actually capturing what they were calling some of the masterminds of the Bali bombings, some Indonesians that were based in Mindanao. So it hasn't been overnight. It has certainly been a long fought battle between these radicals who are obviously being funded from somewhere. I mean, you don't just buy weapons at your local Walmart anymore, not in the Philippines, not in Australia. You can't just walk into a store and buy a handgun. So that they're getting their weapons, they're getting their training, they're getting their bombs and their grenades, obviously from a state sponsor. Now, who would do that? Who would seed the seeds of destruction of one's own country? There's only one person or one organization that I know of that has done that solidly around the world and continues to do it today, and that is the CIA. So we need to point the finger where the blame truly lies and expose them for what they're doing, because the more they get away with this, the more they sell this fake news about terrorists. It's not really terrorists. Let's face it. It is government agents that are training people to pretend for the news media so they can put this out that, oh gosh, it's such a bad situation down there, we gotta declare martial law. Well, I can see that happening in America very, very soon. And things are going to get so out of balance, out of whack, that they will need to introduce martial law. I can see it. I can smell the freedom already. If you can't smell the freedom yet, you need to get your nose checked. Go ahead, Earthplay.
Well, that's right, Steve. And I don't know if martial law is imminent, but I deep down think that there are too many probabilities to allow it to occur. And that startles me quite a bit. Constitution-free zones in America already, Steve. Is that not martial law? Constitution-free zones in America, where you have actually no constitutional rights if you come into contact with federal law enforcement, border patrol, open land rangers. These problems have concerned me for a long time. And Steve, while we're on the subject of martial law, and this could probably happen in America, for those of you who don't think that this could happen in America, think about Watertown and Boston. They're looking for two people, and they held 500,000 people in their homes and searched them. Right now, we have NATO right now pissing off the Russians. Reports are coming out of Russia, and here we are, talking about the Russians again, that the high military officials in Russia actually believe that the United States is planning a first strike, nuclear strike on Russia. Now, this is what the Russian generals are thinking. We're in trouble. Now, Trump is in Russia tonight. I hope that he is, for the first time, meeting with Putin and the Russian parliament, and that they are going to come to some kind of a neighborly agreement to behave each other. I know there's a lot of problems in Syria and in China, and what NATO is doing to further exacerbate the system here is that they're putting in permanent fortifications and military bases in Poland along the Russian border, moving tens of thousands of mechanized troops and vehicles throughout the region. Russia is rightfully a little bit pissed. Also, we have now new tensions with China over the South China Sea problems, forcing down one of our aircraft, a U.S. aircraft, who was on a reconnaissance mission near North Korea with a nuclear detection devices, they called them nuclear sniffers, was forced down by two Chinese Air Force aircraft. So don't think that here in America that we're just out of the danger zone, that all of that is happening over there. They could so easily declare a state of emergency, which would be essentially an act of martial law. Steve, go ahead.
Well, you know, their earthplay, moving troops to one side of a border or to moving mechanized divisions to a certain strategic position. This is purely just positioning the pawns in the game. It is purely just theater for the masses. It makes a great headline. It freaks people out. It gets people concerned and stocking up their water and their rice and buying tin foods and dried beef jerky. That's all it does. It is pure theater for the masses. If we were to see any kind of strike or any kind of attack from one country to another, it would be a pure fire sale. And what I mean by that is even a missile attack is very, very limited in the damage it can do and the things that it can actually take down. But a fire sale is where they go for every infrastructure of a country, combined with terrorist attacks happening simultaneously. There is also cyber attacks. There is also an attack on the electrical systems, the water systems, the power systems. Everything is attacked all at once. That would be the ultimate attack, and that's how I see things happening. What happened about a week ago, we saw that the whole world came under a cyber attack. At least 100 countries were attacked using NSA malware. Funny enough, this stuff was just released just recently, and it shows the NSA have been doing this for quite a few years. They've been quietly cyber attacking countries without anybody even knowing. But now that this malware garbage, the software that they use to hack into people, now that that's out, and there are hackers actually using the NSA software, I believe that is quite deliberate. And out of the 100 countries, have a guess. Which country did not get attacked? Have a guess. Which country had most of its government servers under maintenance at the time of the attack? I'll give you one guess. Israel. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he was happy that his country's infrastructure was not affected by the attack. Aren't you getting it yet? Can't you see where these attacks are coming from? Coincidentally, their servers were down during the attack under maintenance. So it's no surprise to me to know that we have a prime example of Operation Talpiot, the program to get everybody's infrastructure under one easy hackable command line. It seems to me that that's the country where these attacks are coming from. So if anything happens, we can easily blame the Iranians, we can blame the North Koreans for doing this, we can blame the Russians, but down to brass tacks, we have the Sayanim in their positions, the Hasbara in their positions, we have the cyber attacks coming directly from Israel itself. And they have positioned themselves within the gates. They are the Trojan horse that are already in our systems, they're already in our governments, they're already in our councils, and lodged in positions within our societies and our communities. All they're waiting for is the signal for this one massive fire sale attack to happen. That's what concerns me the most, because nobody is pointing the finger at the enemies that are within the gates already, that are in the positions already. So I think we need to be more aware of those Israeli agents that are working for companies and working for governments that are already in Western societies. Go ahead there, Rick.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I want to ask you a personal question, if I can here. These stories that we talk about, a lot of people marginalize these stories, and they are actually hard to report. And that's why you don't hear about them on the evening news, because people don't want to hear bad news. But don't you think that we need to be aware and hear about these stories?
Absolutely we do. Absolutely we do. There's one thing that really, really bugs me is when somebody tells me that they learned something, they found something out, they researched it because they read it on Facebook. Or they read it on their post, or they saw it on Instagram. That is not a research tool. Facebook is in no way an education system that one should rely on. If you do hear a story and you think it's so unbelievable that it cannot be true, don't repost it. Find out where it came from. Check out the sources. Track it down where the story actually originated from. 9 times out of 10, a lot of this stuff originates from an unknown source, or from somebody who's not even willing to give their name. Well, let me tell you, Facebook prefers to pay their fines rather than protect users' data. What they're doing is on-selling your information, your personal and private information. They're on-selling that to companies and to corporations for massive amounts of money. Your data is the new resource. Your information is the new information that they're making money from. They would much rather pay a £150,000 fine or €150,000 fine rather than protect your information. They know that they're going to get busted. They know they're going to get caught, but they don't care because they got billions in their bank account. You know, $1 million fine is nothing for Facebook. So why not make $50 million off your information? And if they get caught, well, it's just a slap on the wrist, isn't it? There's no big deal. So they would much rather mine people. They would much rather mine people's information and their content. People are the ones providing content for these platforms like Facebook and YouTube, and yet very, very few are actually getting paid for putting that content up. Much the same as EarthChangesRadio. We get sponsored by Big Whoop Magazine, we get sponsored by the Southwest Backpacker, and yet nobody's paying us to do this. We do this out of the love for getting information across and for informing others about what really is the most important issues we need to be talking about. And stay off Facebook, for God's sakes. 9 times out of 10, when somebody's at a restaurant and they've got a phone out, they're checking their Facebook feed. Anybody who does that, steer clear of them. They're obviously got no consideration about what is real and what is not. They're more interested in their social frickin' content. That to me is sad. That's a sad state of society. Go ahead there, Earthplay.
Thank you, Steve. You know, you can expect there to be some pushback and opposition when the power structures who they call themselves the legitimate media, they are in opposition to the truth, I believe. That's why they don't like shows like this, and they try to marginalize us, because we're trying to get across credible, critical data. And another one of my examples tonight are going to be on vaccines, Steve. This is a problem that is not going away. But our medical communities, our doctors, our local doctors, our pediatricians, our hospitals, they swear by, blind faith that these vaccines are necessary and must be given, 50 vaccines by the age of 6 years old to all children born in the United States of America. Steve, it's much more critical than that. These are topics that need to be discussed. People don't want to hear about them, but they need to hear about them. I'm going to cite the Vaccine Advisory... hold on. That's wrong. The Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. You've never heard of it. I've never heard of it. But it's an organization within the CDC called VEERS. And they report, these are only the reported cases now, of 125 vaccine injuries per day. Per day in the United States of America. Over the year in 2016, there were 45,742 vaccine injuries reported. Those are just the ones that reported to the CDC, or the people that were recognized to have had habilitating neurological adverse effects in vaccine injuries. Now, we were talking about this very thing, not exactly before the show even started tonight, Steve. What percentage of people are killed by what? 7 people a year are killed by snakes, we found out. I didn't know that before. But 700 people a year are killed by cows. And as our participant finally pointed out, that you wouldn't think that a cow would be that big of a threat, because you would want to pet the cow and run from the snake. Oh, thank you. That's why I love this room. Fact checking. 28 people a year are killed from cows. Thank you. But that's just to illustrate. And the number I cited was 45,742 people, children, mostly children, receive severe vaccine damages, injuries. There's many people that are speaking out about vaccines, And don't take my word for it or Steve's word for it or listen to other people. Find out for yourself. Find out the good and the evil. Find out who's lying and what the lies are and who's telling you the truth, and decide for yourself. That's all we're offering you here. Go ahead, Steve.
The curious thing too, Earthplay, is when I have some really good information, or if I find a really good documentary and I want to share it with someone, and I say, hey, you got to check this out, man. Check this site out or this website. Oh, I don't have time for that. I don't. People just seem to think that they just don't have time to sit down and learn something, but they will sit down and watch TV garbage for hours on at a day. Light entertainment, some garbage American sitcom or some rubbish that's not even entertaining. It just puts them in a zombie-like state. They got time for that, but they don't have time to learn something, or, I don't have time to look at this stuff. That's the problem we're dealing with. People just do not spend the time to educate themselves about what's really happening in the world out there. One very, very interesting story I came across was confirmation. Evidence from a remote cave in Western Australia has confirmed humans have been living in Australia for around 50,000 years. Some real evidence of the Atlantis of the South. The university from the Western Australia has provided evidence of early successful adaptation of indigenous people on the coastal and desert landscapes. This is confirmation that 50,000 years ago there were people living on this island, on this continent of Australia. That to me is fascinating. That they've tried to say, oh no, but there's nobody there. It was nullus. It was void of people. Well, guess what? No, it wasn't. People have been here a lot longer than the official books or the official history books would like to tell us. There's a lot more to our ancient history that we're starting to learn, and we're starting to find out, and we're starting to rediscover. If we haven't already known it, we're learning it now. That's what fascinates me about this world Earthplay. There's always something new that we find out that confirms what we've been saying for many, many years, that we've known for many years. It's now being confirmed by the major academia. Well, most of it anyway. Stuff like vaccines, I fear it'll probably take another 50 years or so before they wake up and say, ooh, maybe that wasn't so good to put mercury inside children's arms, inside their blood, inside their veins. Maybe it's going to take 50 years, maybe it will take 5. But a lot more people are waking up to the deceptions, that is, the pharmaceutical company deceptions that are poisoning our people and poisoning our families, and more importantly, they're killing our kids. They're making them very, very sick, lining them up to get very sick in later in life. That's what I think. That's my 2 cents worth. Go ahead, Earthplay.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Back to your TV comment here. People are being bombarded with information. I mean, just saturated. So much information is directed at them from the television, but they're not getting any real knowledge. Just bombarded with information, but no real knowledge. And that's how the media is treating it as well. These people are like a weapon of mass distraction. Even the news, the so-called news. Right, and this week's topic is the mainstream media, and are they liars or completely incompetent? Why aren't they reporting the stories? Are they that incompetent? Why don't they know the facts? Are they that incompetent? Or do they just lie to you and mislead you? And I don't know about you, but Steve, when I watch these people, it seems to be all about them.
It appears to me, Earthplay, that these corporations who run the TV stations and the news companies and all the media, the mass media outlets, their one aim in life is to make more money. Not to educate people, not to inform people, not to keep people up to date, but their whole sole primary purpose is to make money, and however they can do that. If it means putting up half an hour of soft, fluffy kitten pieces in place of news, then that's what they will do. If they can get more people watching their news by putting garbage up, that's what they will do. Doesn't matter if it's real or not. Doesn't matter if it's not confirmed or if it's a false flag, government operation. Doesn't matter. But they're paid to repeat this stuff and to repeat it ad nauseum to the people. There's one way to catapult the propaganda, and that is repetition, by saying it over and over and over again. Oh, but the experts say. Oh, but the experts say. Oh, but the experts say you have to get vaccinated. So it sinks into somebody's mind, oh, yeah, well, if the experts keep saying it, I guess it must be true. That's how the government relies on brainwashing people and keeping them in this dull state of not learning anything. People aren't learning enough these days as they used to in the old days. We do not have a real education system anymore. The education system is basically to create the factory workers. They're there to create the drones. They're there to create the fodder, for the cannon fodder for the meat grinder. And that really saddens me. When somebody comes out of the military, they've got nothing to do, that they find themselves with a total lack of anything to do. A total depression sets in, because they don't have anything else that they can do. They're not trained to do anything else except kill people. What is up with that, Earthplay?
I don't have the answers that you seek there, Steve. I'm trying to figure that out for myself. You know, this continuous bombardment of information without any real knowledge that comes from our lying, complicit, weapon of mass distraction these people have become. Even the academia is lying to us. You know, we have continuous bombardment of toxic waste, chemicals, and nuclear fallout worldwide. We have problems with our drinking water. We have vaccinations. I heard a story, and I want to plug Dane Wiggington here from geoengineeringwatch.org, and I have another story from him, where 31 children were inoculated at gunpoint. And it happened in Mozambique, Africa, where Bill Gates is administering some kind of a vaccine program, and 131 children and their families fled from their village to Mozambique, Africa, and were rounded up by the police and returned back to their provinces where they were vaccinated at gunpoint. This is the United Nations that's doing this. Bill Gates, this is a corporate joint effort of global communities coming together to make sure that all the children and all the women of Africa are vaccinated, or whatever else is going there. And meanwhile, I was looking at that story, and I remember that someone had asked me in our interactive chat here, Nephilim, had I heard about the Ebola outbreak? And I was like, no, I had not heard about this. Now, these are things that you want to hear about in the mainstream media on your 6 o'clock evening news. 1 minute to break. Thank you, Mindy's. So, Ebola, apparently we had curbed it, or were starting to mitigate its effects in Africa, and we sent in the United States military. We brought victims back to the United States of America, and we cured them, and we released them back into the public. Apparently that epidemic is raging more than ever. It is startling the medical community of how quickly the Ebola outbreak reignited, and outbreaks are spreading. Worse than even before. Yes, the Ebola outbreaks. So the problem has never really gone away. They kind of treated it with pharmaceuticals, and it kind of made the statistics go down a little bit, and maybe they did cure people. I don't know. But the death toll is now rising worse than it was before it became an epidemic in Africa and such a world health concern, prompting the United States military to go over there in the first place. So yes, that nasty Ebola, I can report that I have gotten this from many sources. Dane Wiggington being one of them. And I suspect that people like Professor McCanney will also make these type of reports as well. I'm not saying that he did say that. Dane Wiggington said this. I got this report from Dane Wiggington. And as far, I have another story from Dane as well concerning the ozone, Steve. So go first, and then, man, we have another problem. not just vaccines, poison water, GMOs, a toxic air column, we have yet another problem. And I haven't even gotten to Libby, so stay tuned for the next half hour, people. Don't go anywhere.
Well, thanks very much, Earthplay. Yes, indeed. You know, if Johnny Sixpack sitting on his comfy sofa, if he saw the images of a village being rounded up at gunpoint and forced to take vaccines, he might start asking, if he saw that on the nightly news, if Johnny Sixpack actually paid attention and saw that on his nightly news, he might start asking questions to, hey, if vaccines are so okay, if they're so safe, why do they need to force people at gunpoint to give them these vaccinations? That's just a question that to keep in mind. If they're so safe, why do they need to force anybody to take it? You're listening to Earth Changes Radio, episode 14. We're asking the question, mainstream media, are they completely incompetent or just absolute liars?
Kia ora. You're listening to Earth Changes Radio with Rick and Steve on Terraforming Earth Network.
Satellite radio broadcast, a new radio broadcast system. Here's my mix.
Oh my goodness.
What's going on?
Blow the whistle.
We have a problem. Poppycroft. You're in control of your life, not the government. The government's not dictating, how you do things. You are. It's a cheap shot.
It has to end now.
I gotta hop. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Ciao.
Hi, this is Hillary Clinton, and you're listening to TrumpRighteousNation.com.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hunter, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio on the Terraforming Earth Network.
Rachel Hunter? Oh, hell no. Rachel Hunter?
Hello, my name is Michael Kane, and you are listening to Earth Changes Radio on paltalk.com.
Hi, I'm Susan, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio.
Hello, I am Inga from Sweden, and I am listening to Earth Changes Radio on paltalk.com.
Hi, I'm John Lennon, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio on paltalk.com.
Hi, my name is Idi Amin, and you're listening to the Flat Earth Society from the sphere of the universe. I gotta get to bed. I gotta fucking get up for work early, and I had a hockey game to end all hockey games tonight, so we'll check you out soon, man.
Hi, I'm Nicole Kinnan, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio on the Terraforming Earth Network. Welcome.
With over 150 million registered users, Paltalk is the largest online chat community in the world. With over 300 Paltalk support staff speaking dozens of languages to help you enjoy your online experience. Meet new people across town, country, or continent while chatting about your interests. Sing live karaoke, listen to music, join a lively political debate, or play group trivia in one of thousands of chat rooms in various categories from your PC, your tablet, or mobile device. Joining Paltalk is free and easy. Go to paltalk.com and become part of our friendly community today.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and you're listening to... Oh, I forgot what it was, because it's me.
Hi, I'm Ruby, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio on paltalk.com with Rick and Steve.
My name is MW, and I have found peace from horse shit.
Well, that's really summing up the show today, because people are starting to wake up what a load of horse shit the mainstream media really is. How many of these big corporations and big companies are losing their listenership and losing their viewership? Well, there's more and more all the time, and I find that heartening to know that people are starting to wake up, that the mainstream media is nothing more than a money-making enterprise, and that's all they got. That's all they have. That's all they've ever had, is nothing but propaganda to feed to the masses. So more people waking up to this actually means a lot more people searching for the news and looking at the news critically. To work out what's really going on in this world, you have to look at that news critically. You have to look at it from a different perspective every single time you get told something. You got to look into it yourself not just accept it that that's the way the world is. But indeed, I think we are doing our little bit in our little corner, Earthplay, to wake people up to what's really going on in the world, because there's so many more people now are asking questions, and they're asking, is that true? Where did you find that out? And what's happening with that now? So I just hope that we're doing our little bit and we're getting through to people. It seems to be the feedback we're getting and the amount of emails we get every day from people listening to our shows. It says to me that there is a huge awakening, and we certainly are a part of that. Go ahead, Rick.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, and I'm proud of what we're doing here. I didn't even get to finish up on the last half hour. I still have stuff left over. So I'm going to back up here a little bit. But I want to plug, if you're listening to this audio or you're watching the video on YouTube and you have discovered our show, you can join us here every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here each and every week. Paltalk.com in the Ancient Observatory, or on our show nights every Tuesday night, where you can join us at EarthChanges Radio Show exclusively on Paltalk. Steve, I not even get to talk about the ancient civilizations. Man, every time that I get a chance, I like to plug this, but I have more news stories that are current here. But I did want to back up a little bit. And yes, there are being discoveries are happening on a daily basis, but they're sequestered because they're protected archaeological and geological structures and discoveries. So these are things that we never get to see. But we're starting to get a glimpse, because have you ever heard of forbidden archaeology, Steve? Well, of course you have. And one of my favorite people is Sylvia Ivanova. Yes, she's a Russian. Yes, I like her a lot. Don't ask any further questions. But she has authored and put together videos looking at ancient civilizations and forbidden archaeology in a way I don't think that most Americans or most people look at from that perspective. And she gives you a whole new explanation for some of the artifacts and civilizations that have been discovered all over the world. She's put together interactive maps, videos, pictures, and I want to highlight megaliths.org, www.megaliths.org. If you want to see some of these huge, massive structures, blocks and castles and things that just don't belong, that are older than 10,000, 20,000 years old, we are finding amazing things all over the planet. And what our own academia tells us about these artifacts is completely arbitrary to what the evidence is showing. Yeah, she's Russian. And of course, in our second half hour, we encourage interaction from our chat room. Isn't that right, Steve?
Yes, well, thank you for Earthplay for his research, which I've used in my latest newsletter, which you can buy for $1 per month. The Anunnaki are coming back, and they're liquefying the core of Jupiter. And now the heavy mass object has turned into a black star, which has turned into a brown dwarf, which has turned into a star that you just can't see it. You know, it's out there. We know it's out there, but you just can't see it. So keep giving us the money, and we'll keep looking for it, so you can keep paying us, so we can keep getting rich, and nobody can see it. That's what's happening in the world today, because Jupiter's core is liquefying, and the Anunnaki is coming back, and it's been written on the Sumerian documents that we have in our possession, which we put out in our newsletter for $1. It's less than a cup of coffee a month. So pay us, and we'll tell you. I'd like to thank Steve, and Dave, and Eve, and Ken, and Ben, and Jen, and Den, and Ren, and Ken, and Len, and Ren, and Steve, and Eve, and Jen, and Ken, and Ben, and everybody who paid money to be a subscriber this month. Of course, big thanks go out to those who have renewed their subscription, which include Hijacker, Closet, Nighthawk, and myself. So thanks for listening in to the Black Dwarf update for this month, for this week, for this season, that you can get $1 just per newsletter. That's all you gotta send is $1 to keep us going. That's all it takes to keep this information free to you people. It's free as long as you pay money. So thanks for listening, and this is the Dark Star update for May the 23rd, 2017.
Oh my God! And you can't just turn my mic on just like that, Mike. It's give it over to me after that. Amazing. Thank you for that. You discombobulated me. You know, we don't ask people for anything. We don't ask people for money. We only ask for intellectual content. What's in your mind? Share your stories and things with us here at. Send us some ditties. Send us some commercials. Send us some JPEGs for our video. You know, help us out. But we're not going to ask you for money. We're not going to advertise anything here, because we believe, among all things, that there should be a free and open exchange of information between the public. So we do this out of our own pockets and out of our own hearts. It's not though we don't need the money, because we certainly do. Everyone does. But we're never going to ask you for anything but your participation. Nephilim, my next story is going to be very disturbing for some people, so our disclaimer has to be issued again. If you suffer from mental illness and or depression, we advise that you check your prescription label and see if it's time for your medication. Slap some water on your face, or maybe you just want to turn this video off, because the rest of my content will seem as though it's kind of doomy and gloomy, but they're actually real things that are occurring around us.
Well, you know, Earthplay, one really fascinating story I came across just recently, apart from the melting at the Svalbard the Svalbard seed bank in Iceland or in Greenland, apart from that is the greening of Antarctica. Parts of the Antarctic Peninsula are starting to go green. They're starting to actually have things grow on them, including moss and small shrubs and trees. Now, this is amazing. We have never seen a green Antarctica, but we are on the path now for that to happen. Whether or not it's being caused by climate change, as they say, I believe it is part of the cycles, part of the climate cycles that we experience here on Earth. I believe it's completely natural. I don't think mankind had anything to do with this. I think this happens during certain periods of the Earth. Yes, a natural progression. Thank you, Butterfox. So what say you, Earthplay? And hit me with your stories. I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat.
Well, I'm going to move forward because we have a lot of things to get through here today. The Westlake landfill fire is still raging. People are moving. They're getting more public support. I want to do a shout out to Dawn Chapman down there in West St. Louis. She has a Facebook page out there. Now, this Westlake landfill fire that has been raging underground for 4 years is on a collision course and may even be in contact with a nuclear waste dump that is immediately adjacent to that, and this is their worst fears. So we may have reached that stage because the EPA, the International Pollution Agency, EPA, Environmental Pollution Agency, has now rushed to the scene and covered the Westlake landfill with tarps to mitigate fumes and emissions. So I know I reported this last week, or maybe it was the week before, but this is a progressing story and it's not going to go away. It's very persistent. Meanwhile, at the Hanford nuclear facilities, continues to have collapse problems and radiation readings. People are freaked out. They are stunned. I have another article. One, I want to shout out to Libby Halebi for her episode number 308 at Nuclear Hot Seat, nuclearhotseat.com. If you want to go over there and listen to the whole report, this is where I got this story. Libby and I are friends, and I have permission to use the content of her stories. So go over there to nuclearhotseat.com. Listen to the whole report. All of the resources are listed. Excellent website. But at Hanford, an emergency has now been declared for a second time at the U.S. nuclear Hanford collapse. unusually high radiation levels have now been reported, where last week the government was reluctant to reveal any data to the public whatsoever, which meant that the complicit lying bastards of our media here, and this is the topic of our show, is the media really good for you? Are they completely incompetent, or do they lie? Or do they always lie? Yes, they do, because we are not getting these stories. The experts are saying that the plutonium now could be airborne, you think, because it's being registered by independent sources 23 miles away from Hanford. Now, the public position on this is that they don't want to reveal any data to the public until a thorough investigation, so that they don't give you any partial answers or incorrect information. You know, they're going to wait till the investigation is complete, all the data is in. No, we need immediate, what do you know today? We can't even get that from them. We know that the problem there is deteriorating, whatever that means. Where we know, for what we do know factually, is that a portion of a tunnel that took the most highly radioactive material underground, because it had to be kept away from people, it had to be completely automated with cables, collapsed. And to fix the problem, and I reported this, they dumped dirt into the tunnel collapse, the breach area, and just sealed it, as though that mitigated the problem. It probably did. At least they're taking more action than occurred at Fukushima, but they're saying that these collapses are not over. That now everybody is being publicly reported that near the site is unusually highs of radiation. Plutonium have been reported, that the employees are shocked, that the workers say that everybody is freaked out, shocked, and surprised. The governor is now saying that this is an alarming event, and 3 states are mobilizing emergency preparedness actions. Now, they have not declared that there's an emergency in any other place, but the television has reported that this is a major event. They reported the government saying that it's an alarming incident, but the media doesn't carry the story. Neff, I know that these are alarming and scary stories, and we're talking about nuclear energy, something that they told us was safe and renewable going into the future. Well, it is. If it's so safe, why do you put up barbed wire fences and concrete containment, spend billions of dollars to keep people away from it? It is not safe.
What blows me away more, Mr. Earthplay, is that they spend billions of dollars in safety procedures, and yet when a breakout or a contamination occurs, they spend $5 on a tarp to cover it, just so people can't see it. That blows me away. Where's their billions of dollars of investment, and all they can do is cover it with a tarp? That seems ridiculous to me. But we are talking about the Environmental Pollution Agency, after all, and the more they're doing, they seem to be doing nothing at all, because we're getting more polluted all the time. Now, people who do a lot of cosmic research or amateur astronomers would know about the Great Void. It is an area roughly 1.8 billion light years across, and it's colder than its surroundings. It has 10,000 less galaxies than other areas of the same size. And amazingly, there is not much in the Great Void, thus the name. Well, scientists have now discovered it may have been created by a parallel universe. That's right. We're now starting to hear about alternate dimensions and parallel universes by scientists themselves. What's going on? How come this information's coming out now? Are they preparing us for some big news in the future? Step by step by step, little bits of disclosure here and there are happening, and we're starting to get stories like this seep through the cracks. What say you, Earthplay?
I am skeptical. And I'm usually skeptical everything that NASA says, and you have to look at it a second time. Like they told us that they discovered life, which was not true. They held a press conference and the whole thing, and it was just that they have the ability, now to discover if they're a silicon form life, because they have discovered it on Earth. So they didn't really discover anything. So I don't know. I am familiar of the spatial void. I am a member of the Deep Space Hubble, or the Hubble Telescope page, YouTube channel. And I suggest every month they have a special telling you about the May sky, the April sky, whichever month you may be in. They're very, very good at this, telling you where all the stars and the planets are located and how you can see them, kind of like a Mr. Sky type of thing. And I had the website right here. Hang on. Sorry. Oh, I've lost that note. Okay, I can just tell you that it's the Hubble Space Telescope. I don't have its page listed here right now, but you should be able to find it, Steve. There's some amazing things going on in space right now. We have some comets coming into the universe, and we're going to try to have some into the solar system that have come through the heliosphere and now are discharging a coma. I have also heard that Comet Elenin is coming back. So some of these periodic comets that we've talked about before, like Comet 17P Holmes, is expected back very shortly. If you remember, that's the one that had a halo larger than our sun. Was the largest object in our solar system in 2007, because we believe that it broke up and became a cluster of comets, and it had this enormous halo. Look it up online. There are more pictures than you can believe, and you will be amazed. How did you even miss this event astronomically? Well, not that it is absolutely going to occur again, but we have the return of some of these periodic comets that the last time they came through, like Comet Elenin, which is returning, by the way, caused a lot of people a lot of concern. They don't concern me, but we have some really, really spectacular things that we're going to be seeing in the night sky in the very near future. Steve, I love these topics, but when NASA is making conclusions about regions of space, I really want a second opinion. I'd like to hear from Dr. McCanney and Dr. Paul LaViolette and some other astrophysicists before I take these stories at face value. That's just me, Steve, personally, although you do know that I do look at a lot of the NASA data, especially JPL, and the data coming from the IBEX and the outer regions at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories data sets that you can find online, .gov. That's llnl.gov. These are the sources that I use for my space research, and I find them to be the most honest. But you know, NASA is compartmentalized like a million cubicles in an office building. So you have to find the right cubicle with the right information, and I think that llnl.gov is about as close as you're going to get to NASA truth.
Well, you know, Earthplay, some of the stories coming out, it really makes me feel like we're living in a Twilight Zone or a version of the X-Files sometimes. But here's a story that's a little bit more down to earth and a bit more grassroots, if you like the pun. A global survey of drug users in 2017 has revealed the Australians, they love their bong more than their coffee. More Australians are using cannabis than are using tobacco, caffeine, or any of the legal drugs. In fact, it comes out as the number one that most Australians prefer. This is in a country where it is illegal. It is completely illegal, and if you get busted, you're going to get a fine or go to jail if you get caught with enough. But now it appears that Australians, they love their bong, and I can understand why. There are some good strains going around, so I've heard. I don't do that except at 420, every day at 420, so I don't do that. It's good to know that at least they're getting their daily intake of CBD24 and getting their intake of their endocannabinoid system in their body. It is a system that is inbuilt in the body. to accept and to take on these particular substances and chemicals within the body to restore your DNA. It truly is remarkable what it's doing and how it's affecting people in a positive way. And I believe they're rushing through legislation in some of the states at the moment in Australia to make it legally prescribed for people who need it for their pain relief or their seizures or chemotherapy sufferers, which really is a good thing when you get the munchies. I tell you what, you can eat and eat and eat until you can't eat anymore. It certainly does stimulate the appetite. So I've been told. Go ahead, Earthplay.
Well, that was a very interesting news story, Steve. Thanks for that. I think my sister would vote for coffee no matter what. She wouldn't even matter what else you had. Coffee. Coffee, coffee, coffee. My last story, and we're running out of time right here, was a story about ozone depletion. That we just got a report from a whistleblower, or at least, if he's not a whistleblower, he is a solar physicist. And he studies physics. I don't want to say the name of the agency, but this report is coming from Dane Wigington at geoengineeringwatch.org. He sent me an email, and it was very urgent, talking about ozone depletion and UV radiation that is now damaging trees and crops and affecting the weather, creating even some breakdown of constituent elements in the higher atmosphere, causing a lot of there are more problems than this going on. But I want to point your finger, everyone, over to www.geoengineeringwatch.org with Dane Wigington, where he has published as much as this report, which is humanly possible without revealing who his sources actually are. So this is actually first-hand, second-hand reporting between friends. Dane sent me this email. Yes, and you can actually write me emails at earthplay@yahoo.com. Gosh, we're running out of time so quickly. I do get weekly updates from Dane Wigington. Weekly. Sometimes multiple, because I'm on his all of his mailing lists. And I've interviewed Dane here. Just unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get him into here until around July or August, because he is doing some litigation, trying to get through the Canadian courts. Busy guy. So July is going to be a really busy month. We'll probably have a guest every week. So that's it for this week. I think I covered everything. Martial law has been declared on in the southern Philippines due to war breaking out with ISIS. There has been a landslide collapse at Big Sur, Highway 1 in the coast of California. Levy Halevi's report on Hanford, number 308, what's going on right now at the Hanford tunnel collapse problem that they're having in Washington State, as well as a current update on the Westlake landfill legislature of battle, and what's going on with NATO trying to screw around with world politics. Steve, that's what we have for the week. And stay tuned for after the show, because a lot of other spin-off topics end up coming up. Good night, everyone.
Well, yet another fantastic show. Earthplay, thank you so much for co-hosting with me, and thank you so much for the audience for sharing and participating in our show. They always participate with their text. If you don't need to come to the mic to participate. Just having you here makes it so much better. And last week we had a fantastic guest. We had Guy McPherson. If you haven't checked that video out, check it out. It's online right now. It's been great having this session, so we get to able to put the good news out there and some of the more disturbing news, but most of all, the news that we don't hear from the lying, incompetent mainstream media. Screw them, and I hasten their demise. I'd love to see the day when News Corp fails, when all these big companies and big corporations, they start losing their customers, losing their viewers, losing their listeners, and people start turning to places like us. God bless you all. Thanks very much for listening to Earth Changes Radio episode 14. We'll be back again next Tuesday night with more information and more news that you don't hear on the media. Take care, and bye for now.
In Southern California has suffered a catastrophic landslide hazard, blocking the Coastal Scenic Highway 1 with about 40 million tons of boulders and debris. Mindondo, is that it? Southern Mindondo is the region, if I'm pronouncing that right, in the Philippines that is having a problem with ISIS. And we were discussing just before we went on air how diplomatic relations had soured with the Philippines, and the U.S. military was asked to leave the Philippines. And there's a lot of political wrangling going on there, backstabbing. And now all of a sudden ISIS has appeared in the Philippines. These coincidences are just way too numerous. What are we chasing them from one area to another, creating new pockets? Because, Steve, I firmly believe that ISIS is a creation of the CIA. Follow the money, follow the weapons, follow the funding and the supplies. Always follow the money. We created those terrorists. Are we creating new ones now in the Philippines? We're fighting them in 4 regions of the world now. Where are they coming from? We are creating them. That's only a personal opinion of mine, Steve. What say you?
Well, sir, I do know that for a number of years, shortly after the Bali bombings in 2002, there were reports that media just don't seem to have or don't want to report. That there's a lot of stuff to get through tonight, and in fact, some of the stories we've got will disturb you. They are shocking. I'll give you one example. An 11-year-old boy has casually shown security experts how easy it is to actually bust into your credit cards, into your electronic devices, and just walking around in a hall, he showed he could actually break in to everybody's credit card and get their numbers, break into their phone, get their contacts, and basically an 11-year-old boy has shown how easy it is to hack electronic devices. With the Internet of Things now approaching, where everything is going to be connected, this should heed as a warning to not get connected, to don't have your things handy and don't have your phone switched on in a public place. They are easily hackable these days. Technology is getting so fast now that we're not keeping up with the security concerns of everything that is connected to the Internet. And I believe you have some breaking news stories there. Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, this is just in moments ago from our good friends in the Philippines, our friend Odd, reporting to us tonight that the Philippines has declared martial law in one of the southern islands, that fighting has broken out with ISIS. This is developing news. You're going to want to stay tuned to this. We just found out about this moments ago. Also, breaking news that Highway 1, it's Steve, and I don't know if martial law is imminent, but I deep down think that there are too many probabilities to allow it to occur, and that startles me quite a bit. Constitution-free zones in America already, Steve. Is that not martial law? Constitution-free zones in America, where you have actually no constitutional rights if you come into contact with federal law enforcement, Border Patrol, open land rangers. These problems have concerned me for a long time. And Steve, while we're on the subject of martial law, and this could probably happen in America, for those of you who don't think that this could happen in America, think about Watertown in Boston. They're looking for 2 people, and they held 500,000 people in their homes and searched them. Right now, we have NATO right now pissing off the Russians. Reports are coming out of Russia, and here we are, talking about the Russians again, that the high military officials in Russia actually believe that the United States is planning a first strike, nuclear strike on Russia. Now, this is what the Russian generals are thinking. We're in trouble. Now, Trump is in Russia tonight. I hope that he is, for the first time, meeting with Putin and the Russian parliament. And the
Jamal Islamiyah, the Indonesian cell of the CIA, was actually sending people to the Philippines, to Mindanao. I do know that that they were actually capturing what they were calling some of the masterminds of the Bali bombings, some Indonesians that were based in Mindanao. So it hasn't been overnight. It has certainly been a long fought battle between these radicals who are obviously being funded from somewhere. I mean, you don't just buy weapons at your local Walmart anymore, not in the Philippines, not in Australia. You can't just walk into a store and buy a handgun. So that they're getting their weapons, they're getting their training, they're getting their bombs and their grenades, obviously from a state sponsor. Now, who would do that? Who would seed the seeds of destruction of one's own country? There's only one person or one organization that I know of that has done that solidly around the world and continues to do it today, and that is the CIA. So we need to point the finger where the blame truly lies and expose them for what they're doing, because the more they get away with this, the more they sell this fake news about terrorists. It's not really terrorists. Let's face it. It is government agents that are training people to pretend for the news media so they can put this out that, oh gosh, it's such a bad situation down there, we gotta declare martial law. Well, I can see that happening in America very, very soon. And things are going to get so out of balance, out of whack, that they will need to introduce martial law. I can see it. I can smell the freedom already. If you can't smell the freedom yet, you need to get your nose checked. Go ahead, Earthplay.
Well, that's right.
Welcome back to Earth Changes Radio, episode 14. This week, the hosts Rick and Steve talk about the mainstream media. Are they completely incompetent or just absolute liars? And now, the two guys coming to us live and direct from a basement in the Miami Chinese Embassy, it's Rick and Steve. Take it away, boys!
Kind of jiggy, I like it. Thank you, Carol. I love your introductions each and every week. Thank you so much for that. Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Earth Changes Radio, EarthChangesRadio.com. Want to say hello to all my friends, foes, and assorted others out there. Hello, welcome, and we are interactive exclusively on Paltalk, paltalk.com. You can join us every Tuesday night. Hey, everybody in the chat room, we have a full house tonight. Great to see you all. This show comes with disclaimers. You all know that by now. So if you're suffering from mental illness and or depression, be advised that tonight's show will disturb you. Secondly, this is citizen reporting, and we do not claim to be experts or authorities. We're giving you the news that the mainstream lying media, which by coincidence would be the topic of our show tonight. And hey, Steve, good evening. How you doing tonight, bud?
Well, sir, it never ceases to amaze me the amount of fantastic stories we seem to get through and the amount of information we seem to dig up that mainstream